Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your girl here. I am Tam Anderson, host of the UnNatural Mom. Thank you for joining me. This is episode number 3. Clap it up to you for joining and for me for holding it down. Episode 3 in the book. It takes a lot to stay disciplined and committed, and I'm working on that. I have commitment issues, so I'm all in, especially because this podcast is super, super special to me because it's important. It's not talked about a lot in regards to being the unnatural mom. And for the people that are just watching and tuning in for the first time, this podcast is dedicated to those moms and not even moms, fathers, people who become parents the unnatural way, specifically mothers who don't naturally give birth, but you're a mother or parent by foster care, adoption, you're a step parent, just the non-traditional way of becoming that parent. So this is a space for us to talk and to connect and tell stories that happen every day, and we don't hear a lot about them. So thank you for joining me on this particular episode, number 3, that I want to discuss in regards to my personal journey of becoming a mother by adopting my wonderful son. And I'm going to dive a little deep into, first of all, I adopted my son through the foster care system. And a lot of children who go into foster care are there under horrible conditions, whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse, some type of unfortunate situation. Your parents are incarcerated, your parents may have passed, they're in rehab, they're in jail. Well, I said incarcerated, but um, it's always about reunification, and sometimes it just doesn't go that way. So I got my son, and he was put into the foster care system under horrible circumstances, abuse, and as a result of that, he had a traumatic brain injury. So this particular episode is dedicated to, not necessarily dedicated, but it's about being a parent or a mother to a child with special needs. So he had a brain injury. As a result of that, he had a VP shunt put into his brain, and he had hydrocephalus. Hydrocephalus hydrocephalus causes fluid in your brain, and it can also cause your head to swell. And I'm sure some of you have seen those pictures where you've seen babies that have the enormous heads, and that's as a result of the water that's building up into the brain. So he unfortunately had that. And as a part of the brain injury, there's a part of the brain that is not functioning. And it comes along with challenges. He lived in a medical home by the time I got him. And so that in itself was a challenge because you're in a hospital basically. So you're not even getting nurtured and loved on in a way that, a parent could typically do that for you. So I just had to, in getting him, it's kind of like I'd never seen anything like it other than on a movie screen. When you have children that have a lot of issues, and some actually don't. There are just some children out there that just have issues, and it's not because of a medical condition. It's just because they may have behavior problems or that they're just bad. It could be that. But when you have a child that is considered special needs, now he was listed as failure to thrive, period. So they didn't think that he was going to be basically able to do anything. When I got him, he didn't have a huge vocabulary, was still in a diaper, didn't necessarily know how to feed himself. Um, it was, this was at 3 years old. And so normally at 3 years old, they can carry on a sentence. They know how to hold forks and feed themselves. They're potty trained. My son was not. He was still in a diaper, not even in a pull-up, literally a diaper. So it was like having a toddler that had to be treated like a baby. So you're kind of like starting from scratch, teaching them how to formulate sentences, teaching them how to potty train and feed themselves and things like that. So on top of dealing with behavior issues as a result of the brain injury. So At this time when I actually adopted my son, I literally had to go to his school. I put him in daycare while I was working at the time. I literally had to go to the school every single day because it was terrible. He was a little terror. Now, I'm not saying these things, and then you go back and you're like, why are you talking about your son? I'm not saying anything bad because these things I've had discussions with him. We're open about everything that has happened, and I let him know, like, whoo, you were a trip. Like you put me through a lot. And he recognizes that. He's not that same person in regards to behavior. He's a teenager now. That's a different story because later on in different episodes, we're going to talk about the hormones and teenage stuff and then social media and just the way that the world is and how people are, kids especially, are influenced by the things that they see. And it's a mess. And I talk to other friends of mine who have kids that are women and girls, fathers, who deal with similar situations with their teenage children. So I would just, think that it's just me. I'm like, oh, he does this and he does that. And they're like, so does mine. So does mine. So I'm like, I'm not the only one. So we'll discuss that in later episodes. But in regards to being 3 years old, like I said, I would have to go to the school every day to make sure that he did not first harm himself by hitting his head on concrete or walls, and also harming others, like the other kids, the teachers, the aides. And so they would actually ask me, can you come? Can you come? And so I would really have to be there every day. He didn't have that behavior when I was there, but he did have that behavior when I wasn't there. So he kind of knew, like, okay, mommy doesn't play that at home. Like I am kind of no nonsense. I don't play those games, and I am not strict, but I am stern, and I do demand respect. And you will treat me accordingly. But when he was not in my presence, he was acting a fool. But when you deal with a child that has had no consequences to behavior, that's kind of what happens. So I would literally go to the school and have to just sit there with him to make sure that he acts right every day, every day. And so the older he got, it just would be like it was no filter in regards to like angry. If he would get angry about something, it was extremely angry. And if he was excited about something, he's extremely excited. But it was a little hard for me in the sense of like just seeing the behavior that I never witnessed before. I remember taking him to a doctor's appointment, and he screamed and cried and kicked, and the doctor and I literally had to try just to get him to get a checkup. It was nothing, no needles, nothing like that. Nothing happened. It was a simple checkup, and it just was like he screamed to no end. I'm holding down the feet, the doctor's holding his arms just to just check him, and it was exhausting. It was overwhelming. I was embarrassed, like, oh my God. The doctor had to eventually just say, okay, we're not going to be able to do this. My son literally cried so much that he wore himself out to the point that when he got into the car, he just went to sleep. And I just was like numb, like, oh my God. So I'm saying, oh my God, because I never witnessed anything like this, and I didn't know what to do and how to handle it. And situations like that happen. He would go to other schools and just act out over and over again. And I'm like, oh my God. So it was on me. And I definitely had help from a friend of mine who was there at the time. And we were kind of like tag teaming and just trying to hold down the discipline. Like I don't know, he felt like he always could say, it's twofold because he was so sweet, so charismatic, so giving, so loving, so excited about life on one hand, but this other hand, it was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It was like a switch, and it would just be the craziest, most outlandish things. And so his punishment actually would be quiet time. He just loved to talk, 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 talk. He still loves to talk today. But I would have to literally put him in quiet time. No talking, just be quiet. Sit and be still 30 minutes at a time, just as a punishment. because he felt actually like and I don't know if it was because he lived in the medical home and it was just pretty much other kids that had, medical conditions and then just all adults. And I think he was the youngest one. And so I think that maybe he thought that he can do what the adults did and say what the adults said. And he felt like he was an adult and he could get the last laugh and, things like that. And so it was like literally just mind blowing to witness those types of things. And I just was like, oh my God. I'm in it. I'm in it to win it. I remember one of his social workers saying to me, a lot of kids, get placed into homes. And a lot of those parents, it doesn't mesh well. And a lot of those parents end up giving those kids back and saying, it just doesn't, it's not working for us and we can't, we can't do it. Once I got him, I was completely committed. I was like, I can't give a child back. Are you kidding me? It just didn't sit right with me. Not that I wanted to, but the idea of people doing that to me was like, whoa. And she also said, you know what? He's not going to change his mind about wanting to be there with you. You would be the one to change your mind. And I'm like, oh my God. But I was never going to do that. I'm like, I said yes. I meant it. I did it with love. I did it with compassion. And I'm all in it to win it. And that's how I approached the whole situation. And so I just had to, put on my big girl panties and do what I had to do and deal with the behavior. And so, like I said, punishment would be you sitting in quiet time, sitting in quiet time. And, I did a lot. I think right now I'm paying for the fact of doing too much for your child to the point that when they get older, they don't appreciate the things that you've done and they kind of take a lot for granted. I'm dealing with that kind of stuff right now. And that's a horse of a different color. But everything from, the all the toys you could possibly have, memberships to all the theme parks, and not just regular memberships. I mean, like VIP, platinum, where you don't have to stand in lines. And we're going like every other week. We're at the movies. We're buying this. We see the zoo. We're doing this every week. We're going to the aquarium. We're going to this show and that show. I mean, he had the life that any adult honestly would love to have. I think it's biting me. It's really biting me right now. Um, in regards to him being grateful for everything that he has right now as a teenager. Because when you kind of grow up getting all of these things, it's kind of like, what? What? So now we're at the point of like, I have to take away the phone, the iPad, and things like that. But we'll discuss that at a later time. But those are some of the things that I had to do. We have to take away the toys. I have to do this. You can't go. I remember wanting to go all expense paid trip that I paid for him to do like Knott's Berry Farm. Like I said, VIP. We were going to have like a few days there, and it was going to be amazing. But the behavior was so out of control that I'm like, we're not going. I'm getting every penny back. On a previous episode, I mentioned that I was actually going to do the whole adoption process again. And I felt like he would do extremely well by having siblings. Um, and that was what I wanted to as well. And but the behavior was so bad that I do this. I cannot have you and another child because you don't know the type of behavior that they're going to have when you get them. Even when you give birth to a child, you don't know their personality and what's going to happen. And you pray and you hope that they're well behaved. But some kids are like wild and crazy, and you just really don't know. And you can, teach them, which is what I had to do. I had to teach him to be respectable, teach him to be, mannerable, teach him to be, kind and saying thank you and please and yes ma'am and no ma'am and things like that. And he did, and he's sweet and he's loving and all of that kind of stuff. And he would literally say, Mommy, I love you 25, 35 times a day on repeat. Mommy, I love you. Mommy, I love you. The good things and those are the good challenges, but it's just the behavior that you have. And it also, with the brain injury that he has, it doesn't allow him to have a sense of comprehension to a lot of things that probably you and I would take for granted. Just knowing how time works, understanding just how things in general, like waking up in the morning, and you have hair, and say you see a picture of someone and you want your hair to be a certain length, and you wake up and you can't understand why overnight that your hair doesn't grow down to your shoulders. He had dreadlocks at a time, and he couldn't understand why it doesn't look the exact same way as it did yesterday, and trying to get him to understand things like that, or why you as an 8-year old can't be in the NBA. It may sound funny, but these are things that he would go and harp on for months at a time, over and over and over and over, because he can't understand the process of how things like that work. Um, so dealing with that part of the brain, the comprehension, um, it is what it is, and I just had to, figure it out. And it's still a work in progress. Me working with him, trying to get him to understand. It's definitely getting better, but it's definitely been a work in progress. And so the challenges, are different now, not like they were before. It was well more behavior then. Now it's really disrespect and moodiness now as a teenager. But 3-year old, 4-year old, 5-year old, it was me teaching him, he had to get caught up. As a baby, I wasn't there, but as a 2-year old, 3-year old, and things like that, he had to definitely get caught up. And that's where he was. And I was all in it, like I said, and he did extremely well. He also had this thing where he rocks when he sleeps, and he's always about hitting his head, and the doctors thought maybe he was like having a seizure and things like that. So getting tested for things like that, everything that's connected to the brain, but totally fine and everything. But the challenges of the behavior is what I had to deal with. And I know a lot of you are also dealing with that, especially when you have a special needs child, when you want them to be like, the other kids, and you just have to understand that they are not. But they're their own unique person, and that's what makes them super special. And I am a firm believer of that. I tell him how smart he is. I tell him how proud I am of him. I tell him you have a good heart. You're very loving. You're very caring. And he is. But sometimes those moments of not understanding, those moments of wanting things your way, and those moments of not understanding the way that things go can cause major problems and a lot of friction between him and I now. And it leaves me just feeling the most frustrated and just beat up. Just trying to handle that kind of stuff. So it's a work in progress. That's my story. I just wanted to share that. If you are tuning in and you have anything similar to that, I want to hear from you. I want you to comment and tell me how you handled it and what you had to do and what you're currently doing. And if if it's still currently happening, I want to know. I want to also invite you to, chime in and send an email. Or you can comment below if you'd be interested in coming in and telling your story as well. There's so many stories out there that need to be told. We're not talking about this a lot, being these mothers, whether, like I said, the unnatural way, and how you handle that and navigate that. That's a huge thing when they don't come directly from you, especially when you want it. And it's something that I really wanted. And then I had to come to grips with that's not my path. And I have to deal with that. But I'm going to be the best mother, the best to the best son, the most loving mother that I possibly can be. And I know that you guys are out there are dealing with the same thing. And that's my story. I appreciate you guys always for watching the show. Third episode. I'm super proud of it. We have so much more to talk about in the upcoming shows. I'm so excited, and I can't wait to share other things with you. But I do want to say that this show, of course, is always sponsored by Tam Jam Candles, my candle line in which I make candles 100% soy wax, hand poured, made with love. They're based on my love for music. So I have the song titles, I have song lyrics. I also do personalized candles as well. I can make whatever you like. You would just tell me what you wanted to say, or you would send me the graphic, and I got you. I make them here. You can visit tamgmcandles.com to get yours. I appreciate you guys so much for watching. I love you. Thank you. And always remember, no matter what, you're a mom, and that's all that matters. You've gone on this journey, and it's the most amazing journey ever. So thank you for watching. Tune in next Thursday for the next show, every Thursday. Please follow me on TikTok at the UnNatural Mom, on Instagram at the UnNatural Mom Podcast. Visit my website at tamanderson.com. Also on the unnaturalmomofficial.com. Please subscribe to my YouTube page at the UnNatural Mom. Like the videos, share the videos, and comment and tell me what you think. I appreciate you for watching. Peace out. Until the next time.